Today we're welcoming HOnza, but before we go to HOnza, let's go to our upcoming broadcast schedule. If you go to fmtraining.tv, you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. Today, HOnza is going to be doing, we're going to be having, I'm going to be talking about apple pie, and HOnza will be talking about raspberry Pi. It's going to be a very good day today, but if you want to support the live stream channel, we always say that you should check out the bundles, purchase one of these bundles. So today is HOnza. HOnza has raspberry Pi. And HOnza, we have not talked about the Raspberry devices in years with an S. So you want to kind of like start us off, like, what is this and what the hell? And yeah, because I mean, literally, I talked about this. It had to have been 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Okay, so Raspberry Pi is a very small computer.
Black box. Okay.
So actually, it doesn't normally comes as a box. It comes as this board. So it's like very techy for geeks.
Okay.
And it's basically made primarily, or the goal of the creator of this was, let's make something that's a fully functional computer and extremely cheap, so that kids can start learning programming on it. So this Raspberry Pi is actually for something like $80, and it's fully functional computer, including an Ethernet port for network, and HDMI to connect the monitor, USB ports to connect the mouse and keyboard, everything, and the architecture, the processor in it is ARM based. So it's not Intel, it's ARM, which means that it's low power consumption, runs very fast, but you cannot install normal like Windows on it. And until last year, you couldn't install any kind of FileMaker software on it. But when FileMaker Server came to Linux, that was interesting step. And with Ubuntu 20, it also became available. I think it was 20 or 22. It became available in the ARM for the ARM architecture as well. And so I knew that Raspberry Pi runs on ARM. So I was wondering, well, could we run a FileMaker Server on it? Now we have Ubuntu version for ARM architecture. So I got interested, but I was wondering, will it be fast enough to even just for one user, or will it be completely?
That's a great question. So let me do a little backstory on this a little bit. So these devices historically never really could run anything FileMaker natively. Back 5-6 years ago, we would run a browser on whatever built-in browser it had, and that allowed us to use WebDirect. Now, WebDirect has its issues, and Claris continues to make pretty serious investments in it, which makes me kind of optimistic that it will get better and stay better. The trick is that with WebDirect, just so people understand, is that it's browser-based technology, and the browsers are always being updated. Then someone figures how to do something bad with it, and then they have to patch it and fix it and do this and that. And so it's a case of whack-a-mole. So you always have the game where the little gopher head or the mole pops up and you're hitting it with the rubber mallet. That's what WebDirect is. I think Pro is that way to a degree, but not as bad. But with a browser-based client is always crazy. So now we're saying that there's these ARM processors. And so when we deploy servers on Amazon on Linux, so without Windows, but on Linux, we are using the Graviton processor, which I think is an ARM processor. Amazon, I guess, has some level of investment with these things. I mean, back in the day, ARM was the whole thing it was like the first iPhone was ARM processor and all that. And that's where Apple got really invested, and they invested a lot of money. And now ARM is taken off, and I couldn't even tell you all the investors in it. It's kind of a standard. And if you're part of this like secret Mickey Mouse Club, not so secret, but a Mickey Mouse Club that you put millions of dollars in, you get access to the ARM blueprints or technology or designs or whatever, so you can cook your own, right? So Apple cooks its own ARM processors. They put their own chip. So this is the microprocessor. It's different than Intel, which has been kind of a standard for a long time. Apple started making these M1 and M2 for the desktops. Those are kind of ARM too, right? That's that back to this ARM thing, right? And so the ARM started off as a phone only kind of tech, and it got better and better and better and better. So now it came out, and Amazon's investing big bucks in high performance ARM for these Graviton processors. Now, the question I ask, so now that I frame this conversation for everyone, is if you make a small little rinky-dink ARM processor, remember that entire computer he's got there is 80 bucks, thereabouts. I remember them being, depending on how much RAM you got, they would be $40 to $80, but it's a bare bones, like logic board with little ports on it. How much of an ARM processor do you really have, and will it really go? And so I just threw a big giant softball for you to HOnza.
A little more background on what these devices have been used for mostly. So they made them for people to learn programming, but the practical use in business typically is for a single-purpose application, such as like put a browser on it, run a big dashboard, connecting, for instance, to FileMaker Server that has also been done with WebDirect, and just attach it to a monitor or a screen. Keep it running with no keyboard, nothing, and just show data on the dashboard the whole day, for instance. So single-purpose applications, it's typically used for Raspberry Pi. So I was wondering how fast FileMaker will run on it. So let me switch to my screen, and I'll show you something.
All right, let's show his screen, and let's see something amazing.
So even before this, I started when Claris came up with a Linux version of FileMaker Server. I also started testing it on this mini Intense PC, which was from 2012, so it's 11 years old now. But it's a pretty like robust Intel-based.
With the exception of the RAM, if that was a new computer, yes, I would yell at you for being dumb. But
yeah,
but 11 years ago, 2 gigabytes of RAM went a lot farther, right? 2 years ago, or correction, 12 years ago. What I tried to say, 12.
Yeah, almost 12. So this is what I was testing Linux version of FileMaker Server on,
okay,
and it didn't go too bad. So it was comparable to what I was getting from Mac Pro from about the same year, and that was actually a machine that we at that time used as our primary FileMaker server in our company. So it was pretty sufficient for small business server running at that time. And so this is the Raspberry Pi that I show you. So this is almost similar, except that it has double the RAM. So it has 4 gigabytes of RAM, and it runs from a micro SSD. Micro SD.
How's your read-write speed on that drive? It's an SSD, but micro means it probably sucks somehow. It's smaller.
Yeah, it's not SSD, it's SD. So I made a typo there, but it's not as good as SSD and not as bad as hard drive. So
okay, so in between.
Somewhere in between, yeah.
So like say 200 megabytes a second would be great. Okay.
So this is what I was testing, and this was the result. So this is
so we're cutting right the results here. We're going right to the results. See, last time you were here, Hans, you made us wait till like the end of the show to get the results. So now, 13 minutes into the show, we have the final answer. Then we can hang up and shut off the live stream. So what do we have here?
Okay, so this is the standard test of the bench test tool that I'm using for the last few years. And what was quite interesting is that it was almost the same speed as that Intense PC, and only about 4 times slower than Mac Studio.
But the Mac Studio is a pretty beefy machine. That's a fast machine.
Yes. So that got me quite interested. But it was like almost a year ago when I ran this test. It was like beginning of this year. And since then, I was showing this chart a few times, but I was thinking, okay, what would be a practical use? And I was really having a hard time thinking of this and finding a way how to actually use it in reality. And then I got into dealing with a potential customer who needed help, and that was organization doing a lot of archaeological research in Israel. And from them, I learned they are using FileMaker for 15 years already, and they have never used FileMaker Server. And then I started imagining, and the ideas come up into my brain. Like, okay, so let's say I have 4 archaeologists running in some ruins away from the civilization with no internet connection, nothing, and they are collecting data. So what would they use? It's a dusty environment, so I would suggest iPads, but still 4 different people collecting data. That really calls for a shared database.
45, 4, 4, 40, 4, 5, 45.
4 or 5, whatever.
Oh, you said 4 or 5. I thought you meant 14,
Yeah.
5, as in more than 30.
No. I'm talking about a few people, basically.
Less
Whatever
than 10.
you can
Less than 10.
imagine.
Got it. Okay, I misheard that.
Just working together in a field and collecting data with no data sharing in between them. So that got me thinking, okay, so well, I have a Raspberry Pi. I can run FileMaker Server on it. What if I just take a battery like this power bank, and I can just pull a cable from this power bank, connect to it to the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
And now I have a FileMaker server
On battery.
on a battery. And
how long does that last? Like a day, maybe?
So I tested with this power bank, and it lasted like 10 hours. So I have a running FileMaker server on this, and this might be a very good use case. Like I take my FileMaker server in a pocket, and then the few people with iPads can just work together on a single database, right? And then when I come back, I can just copy it from the Raspberry Pi to my main server in the office. So this is just one example, but it started the inspiration. After half a year, I finally got the answer. Okay, so it may not be useless. There may be use cases for this. Even though it's a not very powerful device, there may be use case or different use cases for running FileMaker Server this way. So,
Okay.
So when I went to a conference in Rome this year, and then later to Antwerp, I thought, okay, how to demonstrate it in a nice way. And that's when I also started figuring out some caveats that it has, and that's good to know about. So my idea was, okay, let's take this FileMaker server to the conference, show it in the session, and let's present the audience with some challenge. And because the conference in Rome was themed, and the theme of the conference was Back to the Future, so I came up with a little challenge with like trivia kind of challenge from the movie. And the challenge for the audience was, okay, here's my FileMaker server. Now your challenge is to connect to the FileMaker server and complete the challenge, and you win a prize.
Okay.
So now I'm going to show what I was actually presenting there and how this was possible. So my first challenge personally was, okay, how to prepare it ahead of the conference. I don't know what the Wi-Fi name will be in the hotel, right? So the next idea was, okay, I can set the Raspberry Pi to actually become an access point and create its own Wi-Fi. So when I turn on the screen here again, I can show you that now I have a Wi-Fi.
So your SSH into that device, right? That's what that is over there? SSH?
And that will be later.
Oh, okay. All right.
For now, I just have this Raspberry Pi running Wi-Fi access point. So this Wi-Fi is created by the Raspberry Pi. So I connect to the Wi-Fi. I made it not require a password. And then the next challenge was, okay, everyone knew there is a FileMaker server running on it. So the obvious option would be open FileMaker, go to hosts, and see if something appears as a local host, but it does not. So the next challenge for the audience was to find out what the IP address of the server might be. And because it's running the Wi-Fi access point, so the way to find out is in the Wi-Fi, check what the default gateway is. So you could get the default gateway. It's 10.24.24.1.
Okay.
So you can add a FileMaker server as a favorite here.
So the access point has the same IP address as the gateway. Okay. Yep.
So let's name it Raspberry. And now the database appears. So now I can open the database, and that database is actually the challenge where you are supposed to fill in some data.
Okay, real quick, how many people know where that's from? Right? Where's
this is the Back to the Future setup, right?
Correct. This is the with the hook to the flux capacitor. That is correct. That tells us one of two things. Either HOnza has no idea what he's doing, or he's really old and he thought that movie was great. So yeah, either one. Very nicely done, HOnza. Go ahead.
Okay, so if you knew the movie, then you could figure out these three numbers correctly and win the challenge. There is actually one Easter egg even here. So if you can see that the time is running 25 minutes behind, that's a reference to the movie as well, because in the one of the first scenes in the movie, there was a room full of clocks and alarm clocks, and all of them were 25 minutes behind.
Yes, that's correct. I remember that was I saw that movie, first part of it the other day. I was like, wow, this is old, and yeah, it's interesting.
But what's more interesting is the challenges or difficulties I had preparing this for the conference. So one thing was, okay, just like with every FileMaker database, you make it running, you think you're done, and then you discover a bug and you need to fix it, right? And I was doing it on my Mac, and I was connecting to the Raspberry Pi. How do you connect to the Raspberry Pi? So you use SSH. If you are familiar with command line, you can just use command line. But most people will probably use some GUI kind of SFTP tool. So you connect to the Raspberry Pi using SFTP protocol, and there you navigate to the folder. You find FileMaker Server there, and there's the data folder, and you put databases obviously here. But I don't know how about someone else, but my usual approach is if I want to download database from a live server, I just use a progressive backup for it. So I have progressive backup, so I don't have to take the database down. So I set up the progressive backups there. But do you see the date here and the time? The problem
that's
is,
like 3 days ago or something, or no, that's last month. That's last month. Okay.
So I set up the progressive backup. It worked for a few minutes, and then when I returned back the next day, obviously I didn't have the Raspberry Pi running all the time. So the next day I was working on the database, trying to make fixes. I discovered that the progressive backup stopped working.
Why?
Why do you think? Because the default Raspberry Pi does not have a clock on it. So when you turn it off, it resets back the date to the whatever was the date when you started it the first time,
Okay.
or when you switched it off. So the
Well,
clock.
okay, back up. But if you boot the operating system, so a backup. So okay, on a computer, I'm going to state this out loud for everyone. So normally the clock is maintained by a little battery that's in the computer, a little piece of memory that keeps the battery. So the Raspberry Pi logic board, little board, doesn't have a little battery in it. It doesn't have the clock in it, and when it boots up, the clock resets to like 1999 or something, or whatever the hell it was, reset to the beginning when it was manufactured. So it would have to go to the internet to reset its clock correctly. Okay. And then so I'm going to stop talking and you keep going now. Keep going. So yeah.
Yeah. And because this is isolated, it's not connected to the internet. It's just.
So how do you set the clock then? You have to do it manually then, or what?
Yes, you have to do it manually, or you have to ignore it. but obviously, ignoring that you have a bad time in the clock can be dangerous, specifically when you run a server software. And FileMaker Server seems to be quite sensitive to this. So
okay, yeah, I'm sure.
So when I connect to the Raspberry Pi over SSH, and you see, this is the last login, November 9th, 1553.
Yeah, how do we fix that?
Date, it tells me that now it's even less, you see? So it seems that the Raspberry Pi resets the clock back to not the moment, the value that it had when it shut down, but it resets the clock back to the time when you last set the clock.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you run the Raspberry Pi for an hour, like you start it at 1 p.m., you run it for an hour, it creates progressive backups every 5 minutes. Then you shut it down. Don't have the which is optional module. Don't have the real-time clock there, and turn it on again. It will start at 1 p.m. again, but at the moment the progressive backup there will be from 2 p.m.
I would be concerned that the progressive backups would be corrupted or damaged because of that stuff.
So that's what breaks the progressive backups completely. And it breaks other things as well, but the progressive backup was the first thing that I noticed that was broken.
Okay.
So one thing that I learned this hard way, is that if you want to use Raspberry Pi for FileMaker Server, it's definitely good to get that optional real-time clock with battery, which you can get for like $10 or something like that.
Okay, so stop. So you can get the logic board without the real-time clock with battery, or you can get the logic board with a real-time clock and battery for an extra $10, is what you're saying?
I don't think you can get it included, but you can buy it as an extra module that you connect to the Raspberry Pi, to the board.
Okay. Okay.
So you can get it like an extra that you connect to the pins there.
That would make sense. Okay. But that takes up we're interesting conversation. That takes up a slot on the logic board, and I don't know. Listen, I haven't looked at these in a long time. I showed Margaret the one we had from 5 or 6 years ago. It looks a lot like the one you have. Obviously, yours is much better now. How many slots do you have on your logic board?
So this is what it shows, and this is the only like connector with like I don't think like maybe 20 or 30 pins or something.
Okay. So back up. If you put your clock on that, then you're taking that slot and you can't plug in something else that's maybe important. Can I ask the question, what would I want to put in there besides the clock that I'm not going to be able to plug in? What am I giving up is my question.
Well, it depends on what actually extra module you get, because some of the modules are built in a way that it has the connector like
it's stacked
on top. Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly. So you can connect module to module as well. It depends on what kind of module you get. So some of them are built this way, and you don't give up anything in the end.
Okay. Well, like if I wanted to put the HAL 9000 AI on the thing, right, from the movie 2010 or what, or 2001, I want HAL on that little board, and he takes the board up, right? You plug him in, click, and then you put your clock on there, your real-time clock with the battery, which is great. Now, that's just cool. And so then your drive is running in an SD slot on the side. You have the USBs, and then can you show your?
Yes.
Because that's how mine was. Mine was a little SD card that kind of spring-loaded. It went in the side.
So on this side there is a slot for.
Yep, I recognize that. Yep.
So that's for the storage, and on this side it says 4 USB ports. 2 are USB 2 and 2 are USB 3.
Okay.
And
then you have a video slot. Or are you driving video?
For video, you actually have like a mini HDMI.
You know, that's an interesting standard that Apple's never used that I'm aware of, is the mini HDMI. Interesting. Hey, this is good stuff. Margaret, we have questions along the way?
You could stack many Pi computers in a farm? Question mark.
Sure. You can stack them up. The question is that if you have, I mean, here's backup. If I buy a Gravitron from Amazon and it does XYZ, I buy a Gravitron, we'll call it a T3 large, okay? And it costs me $80 a month or something, or whatever it costs me. And then how many of those little boxes do I have to buy to equal that? And even if I did that, would you have an application that you could spread and have it process in parallel against that, right? FileMaker's not really that kind of app. People say, well, you can have 5 worker machines and all this stuff. Yeah, but the workers largely are servicing a specific person. It's not like one request comes in and it gets divvied up, to 10 machines and they all process it. It's not what they call clustering. It's not clustering.
But you could actually have like 6 Raspberry Pis, one running FileMaker Server and the 5 other ones running workers for WebDirect. Although I would not expect this to be able to handle more than, let's say, 5 users each. So
per worker, per little. Okay, so yeah, if you had 5 workers. Okay, so back up. What's the maximum spec on this? It's FileMaker. You have the FileMaker server on one machine, and you have 4 additional or 5 additional workers. What's the max?
I think 5.
So is it 5 machines total that make the little group, or
no? I think it's
5 workers. So 6 little boxes total is what we're talking about. 6 computers total.
Maybe even more. I think with the latest version, you may have even up to 10 workers. I'm not sure.
Well, only if you have the time in the day, someone's paying you to do that, and you're bored and you have nothing to do. Because seems to me that you would beat your head against the wall running into issues with that. Because the thing is with FileMaker is that I know that they test pretty well with the single machine deployments, but I don't know how seriously they do QA testing on a 5 worker machine deployment, right? In terms of stability and happiness. Anyway, that's just me. But yeah. Because I don't want to be the the alpha tester, with my customers, right? My customer, if I'm testing for Claris, that's one thing. But if my customers are testing for Claris and they're paying good money, that could be a problem.
They claim this is how they tested the 1,000 users.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, the most I've ever had is 453. So we'll see. But yes, that's even a pretty big number. All right, cool. All right, well, what else are you going to show us on this? Because we do have a hard stop in about 20 minutes.
We do. I have a quick question. So the Raspberry Pi has no internet, no certificate, and no SSL? Question mark.
Right now this one exactly no SSL, no certificate. But obviously with an internet you could have it assign a DNS name and an SSL certificate as well. So it's just a matter that in this particular case I used an isolated network, so no SSL. But that's actually very close to the practical use that I came up with for the archaeologist. So you can think of similar thing like running it on a boat or running it in a like sports action event, something
I have a
like that.
question. Will the browser, so this has come up before, and I don't know what the current status is. So I'm going to ask this question. So with FileMaker Pro, if you connect to a server that doesn't have a fully certified certificate, it could be, or a fully qualified certificate, however you want to say that, you can still connect. FileMaker Pro will warn you, it says warning, and then it'll have
Yes.
a little like red thing on it, but you can still connect. On with WebDirect, depends on the browser, but if it's not encrypted, like some browsers like Safari or whatever will say, oh, you can't get in no matter what. So I'm
Yeah,
just
so by default it will not let you, but the browser where it's most difficult to bypass that is Chrome. In Safari, you just get a warning, and that warning gives you the option to
but
just.
yeah, so that, but if you got, okay, so people are using Safari as clients, that means they're on a mobile device or on a Mac.
So you see that you get this warning.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
click show details here, you can like visit this website. If you understand the risk involved, you can visit this website and then you can connect.
Okay. Okay. I'm just talking out loud, so that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's all the little things because as soon as you say no SSL certificate, but back of my mind goes, okay, well, what does that do for us? So if we're in the middle of nowhere, out on a boat in the ocean, and we have a
And
non-SSL connection, then
and and
that's
by and by the way, if you want to make it with SSL, you can even do it on an isolated network. It's just much more difficult.
oh,
So you can issue SSL certificate with your own digital signature. You can make it trusted on those clients, and then and run a mini DNS server or manually enter the IP address for the host name in those client computers, and then it will recognize the SSL certificate and consider the connection secure enough.
that's
So
interesting.
so there is a way how to do it and how to make the SSL work even on an isolated network.
Okay, cool. Not something I could do. I'd have to get one of the super smart people to do that, like yourself. All right. What else are we doing here? We got about 15 minutes here.
I think that's it. What I had for the Raspberry Pi. Maybe if there are any questions coming from the people
There is
watching.
one question that I'll toss out. Noob question. I thought workers only helped with a WebDirect. Do they also help with processing normal data as well?
No, it's workers are only for WebDirect, at least with the current version of FileMaker Server.
Okay, other questions at all?
Nope. Just people saying this is cool. Someone mentioned that the Raspberry Pi 5 was announced with a single lane of PCLE available and can run.
PCIe.
Oh, sorry. Well, L and I look identical at some certain points.
I'm just going to
And
help you out there. Here we go.
and can run an NVMe SSD. So
Yeah, the NVMe SSDs are the really the little chippy looking ones. They look like RAM memory, but they're solid state drives, and they're like
Yeah.
2,000 megabytes or 2 gigabytes per second of data or more, 4 gigabytes per second, which is smoking fast. But that would make it a much more expensive Raspberry Pi, right? I'm assuming it would be more
Yes,
than.
I think that would be maybe like 150, maybe 200 if you buy a good NVMe drive. But yeah, then you can get better performance. One other thing that one guy mentioned to me with the Raspberry Pi is if you make it do a lot of work, it can get hot very fast. So another option you may want to get for the Raspberry Pi is some cooler.
Yeah, metal case with a little fan on it or something like that. See, the rub is that you start adding the stuff and adding the stuff and adding the stuff. Before long, you've got yourself a Mac Mini or something, right? Or one of these little Windows PCs, a little
Yeah.
knock
But
things or whatever they call those things.
but what's very nice is the power to cost ratio in this case, and the fact that you can take it with run it from a battery for the whole day. That's also a good thing. So I didn't come up with other use cases yet, but if someone has an idea, just let me know. I'll be glad to know more. For now, it was just like fun because we had a few Raspberry Pis as we do hardware integration, so it was very easy to try it out, and I was quite surprised that it's not so bad.
Huh. Yeah, no, that's in. Go, Margaret, go.
So 2 questions. Raspberry could be suitable for 10 users? Question mark.
Well, it always depends on what those 10 users will be doing. You know, I can imagine FileMaker Server running 50 users with a very simple solution with one layout, one table, running on a very slow server, and I can imagine 3 users making even fast server very busy. So it depends on what you do.
I think this, and so okay, so let me back up and rewind this a little bit of a good conversation. So when I originally pitched this, and I'm not talking out of class or anything like that, but when I originally pitched the idea of a web browser with WebDirect, Wim DeCourt was not happy with me and he's a very smart person. I would defer to him, and he goes, Carlton, you're going to be encouraging people to use computers, and they're not going to be very good, and they're going to make them mad. So here's the deal. And Jacob Taylor, who's what I would consider kind of a Wim DeCourt Jr. version of him, he works for me. He goes, oh, this is really great, except that people need to understand that it's going to be on a computer. And when compared to a Mac Mini off the shelf today, or a Graviton from Amazon that's the T2 large or T3A large or whatever they are, this is not a conversation how not to buy a FileMaker server that we've been discussing previously. This is a conversation about how to have a battery-powered computer in the desert and how to maintain a low profile down in the dirt doing iPad, because that's what his HOnza's test customer is. That's what they're, so I mean, so yeah. So the point is that it's a battery-powered experience. It's a limited deployment experience. You could put it in a boat. We're trying to get around power issues and like disposability issues, right? Like here, I was thinking about this the other day. So they have their offices over here and stuff like that. I could put Margaret is in my office there. There's what I would consider a tactical dashboard. It's on the wall. It's like a 50-inch TV, and you could plug this in there, and for $80 have it be a client that just drives that display so people can see what the status of their projects are. They haven't seen that here yet. I'm going to sneak in here one day and put it in here. They'll be like, we can see what's going on and see what the top projects are as they're walking through the places. It would show it on this display on the wall. Well, do you want to buy a full-blown computer to drive that? Or do you want to buy a little tiny computer that its only job is to display one layout or one thing on a screen? That's it. It's its only job. I mean, do you want to spend $700 or $800 on a Mac Mini? Do that. If you have an old Mac Mini, fine. But if you just want to buy a little Raspberry Pi that does that, that's that kind of application. The one use. It's like if I give you one cookie, you have one cookie and one cookie only. Where are you going to eat that cookie? That's what this is. This is not a 12-pack of cookies that go everywhere. It's one cookie.
Yeah, and there is one more beauty about it is you can actually power it from a USB. So if you have a TV set or monitor that has USB ports on it, you can just have Raspberry Pi with 2 cables, one going to the HDMI, the other one going to the USB, and that's it. No more power.
That's double secret weasel. That's weaselly right there. That's good. That's good because the USB is 5 volts up to 2 amps or so. A couple of them I've seen are 3 amps, but 2 amps at 5 volts should drive a Raspberry Pi, no problem.
Another question. So how does this work with PSOS? Question mark.
Well, just like a FileMaker server, it will run FileMaker.
I have a question. How many processors are on that little box? Right, because PSOS would normally run on its own thread, its own processor. So how many processors are on your little doohickey?
More than processors, you're talking about cores and
cores. Correct. I'm talking about cores. Thank you.
And honestly, I don't know from the top of my head.
So disappointed in you, HOnza. Should know that. Guaranteed, it's not a 12-core device. Guaranteed, it's not a. If that thing has 2 cores, you're doing good. It probably has 1. Well, certainly has 1 core.
Christian Schmidt says it has 4. So.
Well, okay. So here's the deal. If normally you have the operating system running on one, FileMaker will park itself somewhere, and then the other cores will run like PSOS. So you could do that maybe.
Yeah. So this is the specs here. So sharing now. So it has a quad-core ARM Cortex A72 processor.
Okay. A megabyte of level 2 cache. I don't know what let's see, that is Pi 0, W0, a bunch of Broadcom, blah, 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 blah. So what's the clock speed on this? That's a 1.5, 1.8, 1.5. All right. Well, that's not totally pathetic. Once again, as much as this sounds really amazing, please, everyone understand, we're not pitching this as a replacement for your normal FileMaker server. Because invariably,
definitely not.
Invariably, someone will do that, and they'll like, well, Hans and Richard said it could totally replace my 12-core Mac Pro that was, $5,000. And we're like, no.
Yeah. But the truth is, originally it just came up as a very crazy idea. Well, ARM-based Linux, we can run it on Raspberry Pi. Let's try it. Let's test how fast it is. And we didn't expect anything good. And then half a year later, I actually came up with a real use case, which got me much more interested.
Sure. Battery powered in the desert. Margaret, anything else?
Does it work with plugins?
With whatever Linux. Okay, back up. Whatever plugins that FileMaker Server on Linux would support. So some plugins support that, some don't. I'm sure Christian Schmidt it doesn't work at all with Monkey Bread at all. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind. I lied. It totally works with Monkey Bread. Christian Schmidt, I think, was probably one of the first people to support Linux.
And so. I think it may actually be the only plugin right now supporting Linux on.
Well, just to be clear, if I could have only one plugin that would run, having a Swiss Army monkey knife would be great. Yeah. So yeah, that's although
Christian is online, so he can say whether it runs on ARM-based Linux as well.
Yeah, he says
it does.
He says it runs on.
It does. I was doing the install on it. It has an ARM installer.
Yeah, it does. Yep. So yes,
so, yeah. So it is what it is. All right, cool. Well, I've got to go to a meeting in a couple minutes. Hans has to go to a meeting in a couple minutes. He's in big trouble. He's been called to the principal's office, so he has to go and take his licks. Anyone else have any questions? Hans, anything else from you?
I just one quick announcement before the end. One great news. So if anyone has concern about using FileMaker in a hosting environment on a cloud, whatever, I will be glad if you just contribute or participate in testing different cloud options for FileMaker.
How do we do that? Tell us how we do that.
So if you just go to this address, fmp demo24u.cz bench test _hosting. I'll share that in the chat for Margaret to.
Yeah, she can post that. So this is your bench testing software, but it also works in a hosting environment, which is great.
So that's the bench test tool that I have had for a few years, but now this is a hosting edition. And if you open this one, it will go to a dispatcher where you can scroll through the currently available options to test. You select one option and perform the test. That's the only thing to do. It will take at least probably an hour. If you are connecting from a long distance, that will take several hours. But the point is that what I'm trying to reach is as many people trying it from different cities, different hosting options, so that we have comparison. And all the results will then go to our website under tools. and
Okay.
bench test. So under these results, under wide area network, you will be able to see all those hosting test results compared, like for instance this one.
Okay.
So
right, cool.
Again, this is sorry, this is the address to open the database in FileMaker Pro, and if you want to participate, just go there, enter your details. Most importantly, the city where you're connecting from, and something about what kind of computer are you running, whether it's slow or fast, to have some hint on whether you get good or bad results, whether it's significantly affected by your computer or not. But as many tests we get in the next few days or week, the better it will serve as a comparison of different hosting options. And if you have any, if you offer any hosting, just get in touch with me, and I will gladly get it listed here for testing as well.
Question: FM Cloud FM Cloud.fm, is that the Docker thing from what's his name? Is that
Yes, that's the Docker-based hosting.
What's his name? I'm spacing on his name. What's his name?
Fabrice Nordman.
Fabrice, yes. Fabrice, yes.
Fabrice Nordman.
Okay.
So I started with this one because Fabrice was so kind to actually provide me with a whole bare metal machine with 12 instances to test. So and he also set up a few others in different cities. So we have those 12 in Frankfurt, one in Chicago, one in Sydney, one in London, and one in Tokyo. And that's already set up and ready for testing. And if I get another hosting ready to use, then I can very easily add it to the list and make it available for the test as well.
Okay, cool. All right, everyone. Any other questions, Margaret?
Christian is curious if that database is open or not.
The one that's run on the hosting is intentionally closed so that it does exactly what it's supposed to do, but the bench test itself is available from our website for free download, and it's open.
Cool. Anything else? Are we good at the moment?
I think we're good. I shared the link, so.
Oh, it seems Christian's question was actually if that's open to connect. So it is.
Yep. No, Tomcat says thank you, Richard, HOnza, and Morgs, me. So cool. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We will see you tomorrow with Christian Schmitz about the next cool another 20 free functions from the MBS plugin to make your life easier as a developer. We will see you later. Bye-bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!